Welcome to CCI Drive Time, the podcast for vended laundry distributors. I'm Steve with CCI. Using your drive time to cover laundromat trends, payment systems, and practical topics you can use in the field. And today we're going to talk about a semi-common objection that we get with people who are looking at payment systems or being approached about a payment system. And it's the fear that they're going to lose customers. And this fear comes primarily around the idea that customers like to use coins, or they're used to using coins, or there's some idea that if I eliminate coins, those customers are going to go somewhere else. And so it's important that we have strategies to talk to those store owners and make sure that we're providing them an acknowledgement of fear. I mean, anything that they do to invest in their business has a risk, and it's important that we show them the truth, that we show them the statistics, that we bring them to an understanding to help them quell those fears. And so this idea that my customers will reject me if I eliminate coin is something that we need to not. Some of us who've been in the business a long time and who've been selling payment systems for a long time have seen it be successful so many times. It seems a little silly that is an attitude that is out there, but it is. A vast majority of the laundromats in the United States are still coin operated. And so we have to acknowledge the fact that that is a fear that people have, is that if I change the way I do business, that people won't like it and that they'll go somewhere else. And so it's important that we frame that objection clearly, acknowledge the fact that a lot of people have this fear, and start to address this idea that, my customers will only use quarters. If I stop taking coins, I'll lose customers. We need to kind of just normalize that a little bit. We need to make sure they realize that owners, we need to make sure that that we know that the owners aren't being stubborn. They're protecting their income. Their fear is of the disruption, not necessarily the technology. And I think that in order to do this effectively as salespeople, we need to make sure that we maintain the confidence that they're not going to lose customers when they modernize their stores. They're going to lose friction. They're going to have less labor, and they're going to eliminate the limitations that they have currently in their stores. And so if you keep that in the core while you communicate with your entrepreneurs, you are going to find that this messaging comes out a lot easier. And again, acknowledging the fact that every owner feels this way before they install a system, but none of them afterwards fear it. Yeah. So owners will say that before they buy, but I haven't found anybody who's done a system that has ultimately said, "Oh gosh, eliminating coins was the worst thing I ever did." I've never heard that in my 25 years. So share that with people. Part of this argument is that, well, my customers don't have bank accounts, which is why they like to use cash. They like to use quarters. And I think this is a good opportunity to, do a little myth busting. Again, it's about bringing up facts, not being judgmental, but you do need to address it head on so that you can set a boundary as you move forward of how that discussion is going to continue. It might feel true to them because that's what they see every time customers are in their stores. I'm using quarters, and they don't maybe necessarily hear people ask about other payment options. And it's because most customers are also very habit driven. And so, if we aren't paying close attention, they may not realize that customers are looking for conveniences. But let's be more direct about the facts. Nearly every employee in the U.S. today is generally paid by direct deposit. That means that they have bank accounts. That means that their paychecks are getting deposited into a bank. And even those that are unemployed, those on government benefits, Social Security, disability, SNAP, unemployment, they still have to have a bank account in order to receive those benefits. They need some way to receive those payments from the government. And so they also have a bank account. And if they have a bank account, they have a debit card. because that's how they get the money out. So even if they don't have traditional credit cards, which I won't argue that not everybody that we do business with in the laundry, in the retail laundry space have credit cards, they have debit cards. They probably have prepaid debit cards. And they very likely might have some of the mobile wallet technology that's tied to their debit card, just like we do. So I think that the idea that that they don't have access to banks, that they don't use banks, is something that we just isn't true. It's just a kind of an avoidance tactic. And so keep that in mind, keep that in the vernacular as you talk to people, that that banking is not the issue as this is. So let's go back to what I talked about earlier, which is that coins are the common. That's the norm. Out of the 25 to 30,000 laundromats in the United States, a majority of them still are coin operated. So this fear about eliminating coins and losing customers can be dealt with in a couple of ways. One of the ways is to talk about hybrid. And hybrid payment is a way to allow them to continue to accept coin, but also start taking other forms of payment at the same time. So our Fast Card product, for example, is a hybrid solution. You continue to accept coin, but you can also take credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, GPay, mobile wallet pay, all of the options that you can possibly consider all become available on that machine without the idea of eliminating coins. Our FlexRF system has a hybrid option. If you want to take loyalty cards and not eliminate coin, you can do that as well. And so that right away, announcing this hybrid option will quell many of those fears, saying, well, we're not going to eliminate coin. We're just going to add some additional payment options, and we'll see how it goes. One of the benefits that the hybrid approach can take, and something that we lean into heavily, is that there's no minimum card reader purchase. There's no minimum that you have to go into, that you have to sell the customer to get them started. And sometimes it means that let's just start with your big machines. Do you have any 75-pound capacity machines? Do you have any 80-pound capacity machines? They might be $8, $9, $10 a cycle. Those are the ones that are the least convenient for someone to drop quarters into. It's the one that you have to empty the most frequently as a store owner. So what if we put a hybrid payment option on just those machines? And what we find is once those machines have been in service for some time, the customers using them start asking, well, can we get card readers like this on the smaller machines, on the dryers? So introducing a hybrid solution in a small quantity for a more of a, let's say, a budgeted approach allows the store owner to really feel out and really quell those fears about losing customers, because instead what's going to happen is those customers are going to be asking for more card readers to go on. So a hybrid approach is excellent. It's an excellent way to get someone introduced to a payment system. And although the ROI on a hybrid is not necessarily as strong as a card-only system, it still handles, it still can provide an ROI that is quite strong. But what we're talking about here is reducing the fear about eliminating coin. It's about not forcing a behavior change, and it lets the store owner stay in a little control, even though they want to offer maybe something a little bit more convenient, like a credit or debit card on a machine. And between you and I, once they put it on a handful of machines, they will come back around and ask for more. We've seen it happen time and time again. And so giving them that ability to kind of budget it out that way is also another way to quell with some of the concerns about the costs associated with the technology. So, again, things you can say to store owners: you don't have to flip the switch overnight. Hybrid allows you to accept cards without eliminating coin, and then they can observe the customer's behavior change in real time, and let the customers come back to the store owners and say, I want more card readers. I want to be able to use my credit card, not just on the big washer, but on the big dryers. And then we find ourselves strategically adding card readers over time. So the next thing that we need to talk about, or we need to bring up as they talk about fear of eliminating coin, is really a generational shift too. We're all getting older. Our customers are getting older. And that means that you are seeing younger customers who have expectations that maybe the older clientele do not have, or maybe they have them, but they're not as vocal about them. And so I think there's no problem in saying that the younger customers expect to use tap to pay. They want to use their phone like a GPay or a Google Pay, or maybe they want to download an app and leverage a mobile app in order to interact with the machines and pay for cycles. Older customers are not going to go away. So again, the hybrid approach of still accepting coins still satisfies them. But when they start to see other users, other customers start to use these other things, they say, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that here." And then they start to use it. So, but the younger generation, they are expecting this. The convenience of this is something that they have an expectation for. You know, customers don't wake up wanting to carry around quarters. They do it because the store requires it. You know, the change that's required here is is an environment change. You know, we need to think differently. We need to observe the customers that are coming in. And what we're going to find is that once these conveniences are added, it actually becomes an expectation by all customers at some point. So again, I touched on the idea of convenience. Our younger generation absolutely has they expect convenience. And we have to remember that we are in the convenience business. That's what laundromats essentially sell beyond, utilities to use laundry equipment. We are a convenience driven business. So anything that we can do to draw conveniences, add conveniences, is going to benefit the store. Again, the speed of starting a machine, the idea of having to go to a change machine, to get quarters, to fill up a machine, maybe have it jam, all of those types of things go away, or at least you have the option for them not to be there. And customers, when they're faced with options, they're going to pay with whatever is easy, whatever is convenient. And I can tell you that as I've watched stores convert and add payment, whether they go hybrid or they go card only, that the expectation of their customer rises. And why that's valuable to store owners, and you need to make sure you share this with them, is that once a customer is expecting to pay with a certain type of card or app, you've just basically bought yourself some loyalty from that customer. If you have competitors that are not willing to make this investment, but you do, those consumers, those retail customers, are more likely to do business with you than they will with your competitor. And so that is something that is underlooked at, is that if they're the ones that say, "I'm not going to make this move," they're the ones losing the loyalty opportunity. Their competitor may be adding a payment option, and they are actually losing customers because of the lack of convenience that comes in that they're not offering. So, again, talk about how owners are actually, they're not losing customers. They're actually losing coin jams, collection time, accounting exposure to money, the rigidity around pricing, the limitation around promotions. All that's what they're actually losing. And what they're gaining is time, control, flexibility, visibility, and leverage to operate their business in a more meaningful way. So, I think the right line to use here is that, owners don't lose customers. They actually lose headaches when they add a payment system. So let's talk about how you would position the conversation. And, I think what you don't want to do, again, is don't argue the statistics aggressively. You need to share them. You need to let them kind of come to it. Don't dismiss the fears they have. This is a big investment. And don't promise instant behavior change either. I mean, I think it's important to be realistic here, but I think you just need to acknowledge their concerns, offer hybrid as a starting point, and offer kind of a gradual approach of migration, and emphasize all the control and flexibility, and then share stories with other store owners that have done it. I think what's important to do here is to lead them in a way that they come to the conclusions on their own, and show them examples of other industries that would not exist if they didn't accept a payment method other than cash, and find that they don't want to be let them come to the conclusion that they don't want to be left behind, that they want to offer the conveniences. So again, I guess in closing, the fear is normal. The outcome is very predictable when they make the transition, and in hindsight, almost every owner that I've talked to says they wish they had done it sooner. So that's what we have for you this week. Look forward to speaking to you next time, and you have a great day.